We got another huge rumor, World War Hulk coming to the MCU. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we got to talk about the huge rumors that World War Hulk is going to be making its way into the MCU. Now, for those who don't know, World War Hulk was a huge storyline written by Greg Pak in around like 2007, 2008, an absolutely incredible Marvel comic run. Of course, we're talking about Planet Hulk leading into World War Hulk. The entire run that Greg Pak had on the Hulk character was absolutely amazing, and there's right now murmurs that we're going to be getting that storyline World War Hulk into the MCU. So in this video, we're going to kind of talk about the rumors, we're going to talk about where they came from, then I'm going to talk about some of the books that might be getting hot as a result of this. I believe actually there are a few that have already sort of seen that speculators going to speculate, jumping on them, so we're going to kind of go over those as well. And then at the end of the video, I kind of want to get into what I think is almost the most important part of the discussion, and that's going to be this idea of like, when do you need to spec on a book? Like when is it too early to get your hands on something? So I kind of wanted to talk about that idea and see if we can tame our FOMO a little bit. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel, do one of those things, I would appreciate it. But first we got to talk about the actual news itself. We got to talk about the actual rumor. So this is a story that sort of broke yesterday, kind of late in the day. Various blog and movie news sources kind of leaked this out, and then it kind of went into all of our favorite apps and Instagram influencer posts and things like that. But here's one from Murphy's Multiverse. Those who don't know, Charles Murphy is a big kind of MCU blogger, but this is just one of the reports. It looks like She-Hulk may set up World War Hulk movie that is already eyeing a late 2022 production start. So this kind of just gives you the sense of it. I'll kind of flip through some of the articles. This was one written by Mateus Ribeiro. World War Hulk movie slate to begin production in 2022. And basically, just to sum it up, they're talking about this idea that there's been news right now that this movie is in development. That She-Hulk is going to kind of lead into the results of this movie. And then it also mentions this idea of obviously one of the big issues with The Incredible Hulk was his film rights, right? Like the film rights for Incredible Hulk had been tied up with Universal. So that was one of the reasons why Marvel had such a hard time making solo Hulk movies, is that they didn't have the distributing rights, I believe it was. So maybe this is a sign that they're starting to get around some of these rights, or maybe they worked a deal with Universal. Whatever the case may be, if this rumor is actually true that we're going to be getting World War Hulk into the MCU in some kind of way, it's definitely an acknowledgement that they either figured out a way to kind of game it to where they could maybe make a titled film called World War Hulk as opposed to like The Incredible Hulk, whatever the case may be, or they figured out a deal with Universal where both companies might get something out of this, or maybe Universal's going to distribute it, kind of like how Marvel has deals with Sony, and it's a quid pro quo, like both companies do well as a result of it. So that's kind of where the rumor started. Again, take this with a grain of salt. These are just MCU leakers. They tend to have a pretty good track record. They have good sources and things like that. So definitely interesting to hear what they have to say about it. So this is very exciting that we're going to get maybe a World War Hulk storyline in the future. So like things do, books get extremely hot, and I kind of want to show a couple that I think are interesting when we talk about what a World War Hulk film would be. Now, the book that got, I'd say, the most hot, at least overnight, is this one right here, World War Hulk #1. Of course, this is the first issue of that sort of crossover event comic book. This was one written by Greg Pak in 2008. So this is a book that's got extremely hot already. It's selling around those $30, $40 ranges or so. There's, I think there's other versions of this. We have a lot of variants. We have a lot of, director's cuts, things like that. So a lot of different types of copies are selling. And of course, it makes sense. I mean, this is the title of the rumor, right? The World War Hulk #1 issue. Kind of like other things that we've seen where it's like Infinity Gauntlet #1, or maybe, Secret Invasion #1, things like that. This is now going to be a book that is going to be deemed a key book that people are going to want to get their hands on. So this one, I I do think is pretty cool. But there are a lot of other books that I think are interesting as they relate to the potential storylines of World War Hulk. And the one that I wanted to kind of point out here first is actually Incredible Hulk number 92. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is actually one of the storyline books that kind of set up the World War Hulk storyline. Now, basically what had happened was, the Incredible Hulk was sort of deemed too dangerous to live on Earth, and the Illuminati sort of shot him out into space, and he wound up on Skaar, and then we sort of ended up getting that storyline that was like, kind of the one that they sort of appropriated for Thor Ragnarok, right? Where we had the Grandmaster, having that tournament, except in this particular comic book, it was actually the Incredible Hulk storyline that kind of went through that gladiatorial process. So right here, this book right here, Incredible Hulk number 92, this is sort of that first time we see Hulk do that. And what's so significant about this is that this is actually the first appearance of a few characters. One is the first appearance of Meek, who we all know Meek is in the MCU, a total different version than the one we see in the comic book. But as it relates to the news here today, this is the first appearance of a character known as Kyra. And Kyra is actually this character, this alien that Hulk falls in love with. Now, they kind of appropriated that story with Valkyrie when they did it in Thor Ragnarok. But essentially in this book, Hulk meets this character, and this is the one that, he falls in love with. And then eventually they have a son who becomes Skaar, who we'll get to in a second. And then also, spoilers, if you don't want to hear what happens in the story, she ends up dying. And then as a result, because she dies, Hulk thinks that it was the Illuminati who did it. And that's what sets him off on the rampage to be, the World War Hulk. So if we're taking comic book precedent for this particular storyline, we got to figure out in the MCU, why is Hulk going to go ballistic? They might do this idea of him falling in love with a character, that character dying, and him going ballistic as a result. And in this particular instance, it was this character known as Kyra. So Incredible Hulk number 92, I think this is a really interesting book. Could be an interesting key for this, and definitely sets up this whole entire storyline. Now, I mentioned Skaar as well. There's a few books that I kind of want to point out for that. We have a What If book here. This is What If featuring Planet Hulk. This, of course, is a What If storyline. It is technically the first appearance of Skaar, who is the son of Hulk. And there you see Kyra right there on the cover. Now, if you guys are not someone who believes in What If being canon to comic books, then this may not be the book for you, but definitely something worth pointing out. This one right here, World War Hulk, number 5. This is the first cameo appearance of Skaar. This is later on in the series. Actually, this is the final issue of the event that is World War Hulk. And then lastly, we have Skaar, Son of Hulk, number 1. I can't really zoom this in anymore. I guess the low res quality on Go Collect here, but this is what is ultimately considered the first full appearance of this character known as Skaar. Skaar, again, another character that has been rumored to come to the MCU, kind of in all of these rumors. I bring him up with regards to World War Hulk because he is the son of Kyra and Hulk. So, could be interesting. Maybe this is how they're going to kind of get him into the MCU, or, maybe they're actually talking about Skaar coming to the MCU first in some kind of multiverse wibbly wobbly stuff, maybe through Kang, and then maybe Skaar's going to be the character that dies and sets off Hulk on a rampage. If we're kind of looking at the slate of films and thinking about okay, well, how does this all really set up? If She-Hulk is going to be setting up World War Hulk, then it feels like any characters we establish in the She-Hulk show are going to play a massive role in whatever the storyline of World War Hulk is going to be. And, we have to think about it like this, right? Where World War Hulk obviously is going to be maybe a title that they use, but similar to how they did, Civil War in the MCU, they're not going to take every single story beat and storyline from the actual comic book, right? It's not like we had the New Warriors set off the events of Civil War. They sort of took that plot point and adapted it to Scarlet Witch. So it feels like if they're going to do something similar to World War Hulk, they're going to have to look at the landscape, see the pieces in place, and then ultimately figure out what it is that's going to lead us to that particular storyline. And that's where I kind of want to talk about the next 2 books, which I think are almost the most interesting with regards to the announcement of World War Hulk possibly being an MCU movie. And these 2 books here that I wanted to show you guys are going to be New Avengers number 7 and Hulk Future Imperfect number 1. And I think that you guys probably know these 2 books. Both of them have been interesting, hot books, or not necessarily, flaming hot, but they've been warm books over the last year or so. But the new Avengers, of course, this is the first appearance of the Illuminati. Now, again, there's a lot of rumors right now that the Illuminati might be showing up as soon as Doctor Strange #2. And kind of like I mentioned with this, World War Hulk storyline, that the entire storyline is basically set off because the Illuminati sends Hulk into space, and that kind of sets him off on his journey. Also, it's Hulk that thinks that the Illuminati is the team that ultimately killed his wife. And then in the World War Hulk storyline, for the most part, Hulk is going up against the Illuminati team. So I really do think that if, in fact, the rumors are true that we're going to be getting the Illuminati in Doctor Strange 2, then it all starts to, kind of lay the foundation of like, oh, okay, if they do a World War Hulk movie, maybe it is going to be him going against the Illuminati team. And that kind of makes this book extra exciting for that reason. So I definitely think the new Avengers #7, of all the books that you could be specking on, if you're someone out there who wants to spec on this particular rumor, this feels like a really good pickup in my opinion. Additionally, the other book that I think is really interesting is, of course, Hulk Future Imperfect #1. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first appearance of Maestro. Now, Maestro, for those who don't know, is Hulk in the future, his future self, who essentially ends up killing all the superheroes and takes over, this kind of barren wasteland Earth. And that's kind of what Hulk is destined to become later on. And so in this particular storyline, we get his first appearance. And this is a really interesting thing because, maybe it is that if we get a World War Hulk storyline, due to all of the crazy Kang multiverse variant situations going on, maybe it's not going to be Bruce Banner Hulk that is going to be the villain of this. Maybe this is going to be a way for them to sort of bring in Maestro into the equation and have that be the World War Hulk storyline that we get. And one of the things, of course, that is really interesting about Maestro right now is, if we look at, the transmedia aspect of this whole, Marvel creating synergy with their movies and everything like that. I mean, we have so many current comic book storylines with Maestro right now. I think Peter David is leading that charge. And then we also, one of the big digital NFTs that we got on the VV app is actually this book right here, Incredible Hulk Future Imperfect. So there's a lot of different, versions of Maestro being used around the sort of Marvel landscape. And there might be a reason for that. Maybe they want to kind of get this character very familiar with pop culture or the people, within the Marvel, fandom, so that when they bring in, Maestro into this event film, so to speak, that would be something that people would be excited about. They'd be excited to see a character that they know. So those are a couple of the books that I think are pretty interesting with regards to this rumor. But, before you go off and start, purchasing these things and just FOMO buying every single book on eBay, I did kind of want to talk about, this idea a little bit of how early do you really need to spec on certain books? I had made a video the other week where I talked about Thor 134, which is the first appearance of the High Evolutionary. And I talked about this idea of should you be speccing on hot books? And basically in that sort of conclusion of that video, what I arrived at was this idea that, for certain hot books, when there is a rumor around them, a new floor is established, right? So you're essentially going to have to fork over a certain amount of money to now acquire that book. So I think right now with this new rumor, World War Hulk #1, that particular issue, the #1 issue of the event, is right now going to have a new floor, right? It is going to be a whatever, $25, $30, $35 book, whatever the case may be. And that's just the reality. I mean, that's probably going to carry itself over for the next year or so. But with that said, with regards to, what that means for, someone like you and me, if we want to be buying this thing or speccing on this thing, what I think is really interesting is that if I look at, some of the comparables, like say, Iron Man 225, which is the first Armor Wars, or Secret Invasion 1, which are both books that we know are going to be, making their way to the MCU in some kind of way. We're going to get Armor Wars and Secret Invasion. When I look at the book price for those when they were announced, and I look at the prices that they're at today, effectively they're around the same price. Right when we got the announcement of Armor Wars, that's a dollar bin book that shot up to $25, $30. And when I go into eBay looking for that book, I can still see copies sitting at $25, and I can even find some best offer ones that I'm sure you could get for 20. Similarly, Secret Invasion, kind of the same thing, like a dollar bin book that shot up to 25, and when I look for it today, I can still find it at 25. So I think what I'm trying to say to you is, if you're someone who is excited about this rumor of World War Hulk and you want to get your hands on this book, what I would actually say is, because this is a movie that's not going to start production until like a year from now, and when we're actually going to see this thing is probably 3 years from now, I would just say, have this thing on your want list, keep it in the back of your mind. And then when you're out there hunting in LCSs, like, you might get lucky one day and come across this book, for $5 or whatever. You might find it in a dollar bin, and that'll be the time for you to acquire it. I mean, I think you have a lot of time to get your hands on this book. So I would definitely recommend to you guys, don't FOMO buy this stuff. Just with these rumors, have them be ways for you to kind of just, put it in the back of your head. Like, okay, this is now a key issue. I should keep my eye out for this thing. And if I come across it in the wild, I'll definitely pick it up. And then if you really, really, really want to get your hands on this book, you can wait a year and maybe just be patient with it. Find something on a dip, find a live auction that ends in the middle of the night. You'll be able to get this book, for the same price, say a year from now, that you'll be able to get it today. You'll probably even be able to get it a little bit cheaper a year from now, and you'll still have time before this thing actually ends up coming out. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. That was me kind of going over the rumor here of World War Hulk, doing my little rumor roundup. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys fans of this story? Are you guys fans of, this potential movie? Let me know if you guys have any of these books. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you in the next video.